Okay, we'd like to welcome Rory McIlroy into the interview room, our 2018 champion here at the Arnold Palmer Invitational presented by MasterCard, making his 11th start at this event every year since 2015. Rory, if you can talk a little bit about what means so much to you about Mr. Palmer's event.
Yeah, it took me a while to get here. So Arnold would write me a letter pretty much every year from when I was eligible to play the event, I think in 2010. And I didn't make it here until 2015. I think there was one point where he said he was going to break my arm if I didn't come. So eventually I did. And as soon as I got here and saw the golf course, and I sort of instantly regretted that I didn't come a little sooner, because it's a golf course that sets up really, really well for me. And, I've obviously done pretty well here with the win and a lot of other good finishes. So, yeah, it's a great event. I think it's one of the best setups that we play all year, with as strong a field as pretty much anywhere that we play. And yeah, it's good to be back.
All right, we'll go right into questions. Well, right here in the middle. Yep, let's go to Jeff.
Rory, Mike Bianchi from the Orlando Sentinel. They're sort of changing the TV coverage of this event with more caddy player interaction and more on-course interviews. I'm wondering, TGL does that same sort of thing. What do you think about that? Is that good for the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great for the game. I think it's great for the core golf fan, the people that want to hear that sort of stuff. They want to hear the strategy. They want to hear a player and a caddy talk through what sort of shot they're going to hit, how they're going to play it. Anything that provides more context to what we're doing out there, I think is a really good thing. And yeah, it's good to see that there's going to be a few less commercial breaks to try to focus on some more of that stuff over the weekend. So I think that's hopefully only going to be additive to the broadcast.
Is any distraction at all? I mean, you're focused out there. Is that going to be any distraction?
I don't think there's going. I mean, we have a boom mic pretty much everywhere we go anyway. It's not. I don't think it's not going to make a difference for us at all. We're just going about our business, doing the same thing. It's just, it's going to be picked up and focused on a little bit more. But we don't know that stuff. We don't experience that stuff. That's just for the viewers at home.
All right, let's go over here on the right side, and then Andrew and Dan.
Mike Brodsky, Florida National News. Rory, today in the program, you were paired with Nate Bargatze. Can you critique his golf game, and do you think he's ready for the PGA Tour, or should he stick with stand-up comedy?
So I've gotten to know Nate pretty well over the last few months. I do this sort of a couple of day event up at a Hoopy Match Club in Georgia, and Nate came as well in December. So we've sort of kept in touch since, but I've loved his stuff for a long time. But yeah, no, he's probably a better stand-up comedian than I am a golfer. So he's killing it, and he's doing a great job. And I think he did over 200 tour dates this year, so he doesn't have a lot of time to play golf. But his golf game's okay. If he had a little more time to work on it, he's got potential.
All right, Andrew, and then we'll go to Dan and Bob in the middle.
Looks like a ton of equipment changes for you this week. Driver, 3-wood, 5-wood. I think you got a long iron in there, dropping the 50 degree. Curious what improvements you're seeing there, and can you talk through those changes a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's all really come from the ball change a few weeks ago. So, because this ball, especially with the shorter irons, spins a little bit more, especially with the sort of 3/4 shots. I feel a little more comfortable playing those. So I actually weakened my pitching wedge by 1.5 degrees to sort of bridge the gap between, having a 46.5 and a 54. So that's now 48 degree, then 54-60. I just feel like with the ball, I'm a lot more comfortable playing those sort of 1/2 and 3/4 shots. So comfortable going back to 3 wedges. And then, I sort of had to look at the top end of the bag then of how I was going to configure it. And for a while, I've been looking for a club that sort of carries 300 in the air. I feel like there's a lot of golf courses we go to that really pinch in at like 310, 320. And I'd hit a 3-wood, or I can't hit driver because it's just too narrow. But then I'd hit my 3-wood that's going like 285, 290. But guys that are shorter than me are hitting driver, sort of 300 or 310. So I feel like I was at a disadvantage in some ways, even to like people that hit it shorter than me, depending on the course setup. So I messed around with the mini driver last year, but I just couldn't quite get comfortable with it. So I've sort of been playing around with like stronger 3-woods. So this 3-wood that I have carries like 300, 305 in the air, which is a really good club for me to have. And then I've went from a 5-wood to a 4-wood, and that 4-wood sort of bridges that gap. And then I've got the 3-iron that sort of replaces the 5-wood. So I've got a club that sort of flies 260, a club that flies 280, a club that flies 300, and then the driver. So that was sort of the reasoning behind them. And it just sort of gives me more options off the tee, especially with being so comfortable at the other end of the bag with the wedges and hitting those 3/4 shots. It's nice to have those options up at the top end of the bag.
All right, we'll get Dan and Bob in the middle, and then over to Luke.
Ratings have been pretty good to start the season. TGL is been a big success. Feels like the PGA Tour is on a pretty good path of its own. Do you still feel like golf needs a deal?
I think the narrative around golf, I wouldn't say needs a deal. I think the narrative around golf would welcome a deal in terms of just having all the best players together again. But I don't think the PGA Tour needs a deal. I think the momentum is pretty strong, as you say. You know, TV's been good. TGL's been hopefully pretty additive to the overall situation. And yeah, I would say, again, I answered this question in Torrey Pines 2 weeks ago. Before, the landscape might have looked a little different then than it does now over these past couple of weeks. And I think a deal would still be the ideal scenario for golf as a whole. But from a pure PGA Tour perspective, I don't think it necessarily needs it. So.
Okay, let's go Bob and then Luke.
Rory, over the years, you've kind of taken a different approach to Augusta and getting ready. Have you settled on a way to go about it? Will you do anything different this year, or what you did last year? Did you settle in on that?
Yeah, I'm still to make a bit of a decision. I'm going to play these next 2 weeks. I'll see how these next 2 weeks go, and then I'll sort of reassess. I don't like the idea of having 3 weeks off going into the Masters. So I may add one event, but I'm still between what event that may be. But it really just depends on how these 2 weeks go and how I'm feeling about my game. But I would imagine I'd add an event leading into there. It just depends on whether it's Houston or San Antonio.
Does going to Augusta National in advance help, or have you done it so many times now that you don't feel like that it's maybe just a leisure trip if you're going to go?
No, it helps. I think it does help because you can spend as much time as you want around there, like on those days that you go up outside of the tournament, and you're not under any pressure from like a time constraint, like having to get to media or having any other obligations. So, and it's funny when you want to spend 6 hours on a practice round, it doesn't feel like it's that bad. But like the week of, you don't really want to be out there for 6 hours, and it feels a little different. So I think being able to take your time away from the tournament and doing it is a nice thing.
All right, we're going to go Luke, Shed, and then we'll wrap with Doug over here.
Hey, Rory. You said over the off-season you spend a ton of time working on golf swing stuff, hitting balls into a blank screen. Now it's like tournaments coming thick and fast. You're playing a ton. How do you make that transition, I guess, in mindset or practice or whatever, but also keep the stuff that you want to keep in your golf swing?
Yeah, well, hopefully I did it enough over those weeks into the screen that some of it stays in there. I think that's why you do it. You sort of try to train that so that under pressure it stays in there without you thinking about it. So I still have a nice feeling of what I'm trying to do, but I'd say that for that period of time at the end of last year, that was the most important thing and not actually what the ball was doing. We're now what the ball is doing the most important thing, and then that's sort of secondary. But yeah, there is that balance between making sure that you're not getting too far away from where you want to, but still, hitting the shots that you need to and executing. And I think to execute 100%, I think there's very little thought for technique in there. It's just a matter of visualizing and sort of letting your body do it.
Is that a hard, flip to switch?
Absolutely. I think to go from one week to the next is very hard. And I've found that, I'll bring Michael Bannon over for a week of practice and we're working on stuff. And then if I have to go straight into a tournament the next week, I sometimes struggle because trying to flip that switch between hitting balls on the range and focused on technique in terms of, it's like the whole golf swing versus golf. You have to switch into golf mode, playing golf, getting it around. That takes a little bit of time. So it's sort of, the cadence for me is spend 3 or 4 days at home working on technique, slowly work that into playing golf at home and doing that, and then getting to the tournament and getting focused on preparation and the things that you need to do to play well that week.
All right, Dave?
Yeah, Rory, curious, given you're one of the co-founders of TGL, what's the level of disappointment in not making the playoffs? Is it commensurate with, a setback in tournament golf? Is it more? Just curious.
Yeah, I'm disappointed. It would have been nice for Boston to at least get one win during the season. So yeah, disappointed, but also encouraged that, I think the thing is, for first season, you really were, we didn't really know how it was going to go. And I think the thing that I've been excited about is the player buy-in. Everyone seems to be having fun out there, enjoying it, and excited to play. So yeah, I would have loved to have been playing in the semifinal in a week's time or a couple of weeks' time. But there's pros. I'll probably still go and watch, and it's a fun night to be there and sort of watch the guys in a bit of a different environment. But I wish I would still be out there and playing and still be involved. But I wouldn't say it doesn't. I'd feel like if I missed the cut this week, for example, that would be that'd be a little more disappointing, I think.
Just one other thing real quickly, not related. You said something about a bit of a sense of a different feeling with how you felt about reunification of the game, or the PGA Tour maybe doesn't need it as much. What has changed in those couple of weeks? Can you share an insight as to...
Look, I think it takes two to tango. So if one party is willing and ready and the other isn't, it sort of makes it tough.
All right, we'll wrap with Doug right here.
Just to be clear, when you mention ideal scenario as a deal, any deal in your mind involves players getting together more than 4 times a year, not so much investment.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Can you figure out how that happens?
I mean, their $1 billion would be nice too,
yeah,
but more.
We'd all take it, sure. Can you figure out how that happens as it relates to LIV, or have you given any thought to that?
I gave a lot of thought to it a couple of years ago, but less now. No, I mean, you could create exemption categories that try to capture who you want to capture. Major winners in the last 3 years plus player champions. I don't know, but yeah, that's again, I'm not my department.
Does it seem farther away than it did?
I don't think it's ever felt that close, but it doesn't feel like it's any closer.
Okay. And if you don't mind, one more. I thought there might be a chance. The one thing every player agreed on was they don't like the system at Eastlake, but I'm not sure how you feel since it's helped you a couple times, hasn't it?
Three.
Three, sorry. Do you have
No, I've won at both iterations. Look, right. I think the thing is, like, everyone sort of talks about the match play format, and like, we don't have a match play tournament. So would Eastlake lend itself to match play, and would that be exciting? And it might be, but I think one of the comments has been, you know, we play stroke play the whole way throughout the season, and then to decide the FedEx Cup champion, we play match play. It's like, I don't know if that's the best way to determine the season-long champion. It could be like, I like the format. I like the idea.
Kind of the brackets and
the brackets and the seedings and all that. Like, I really like that. But I just don't know if it's the right tournament for it. I don't know.
If they get something done for this year, does it have to be right? You know what I mean by that?
Yeah. I think does it have to be right? I mean, it has to be close to being right, but it has to be simple. I think it has to be simple. I think, if anything, we've sort of overcomplicated the whole thing in a way, and I think we just need to simplify it.
Thank you.
All right, Rory McIlroy, thank you, sir.
Thank you.